live the earth, a million leagues under the sea, episode 83, Lyrical Ones. Affluent, how you doing this evening?
Cineo, I'm doing well. I am happy to be here um, in this month of January. Like, it's very interesting. A lot of places in the world is winter and it is cold. In the northern hemisphere in a lot of places. And for some people, that's a tough time to navigate, and for others, not so tough. And just different challenges that come with the cold weather. And I don't know if it symbolizes a beginning the way the the calendar we use says it does or it should. Um, when we could technically take a page from nature and call the spring when when new life starts as as the beginning of the year. And so, in honor of new things, our second episode of this fiscal year, calendar year of this specific calendar. Um, I don't even know what this calendar is actually called.
Georgie
Um,
Porgy.
the Gregorian,
I'm glad you
right?
got that. Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
I think
yeah,
that's what it
yeah,
is. I could be wrong. I'll
yeah,
look it up.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's the one. And so yeah, that calendar because you got lunar calendars and Aztec calendars. Got a lot of calendars that people is living their life by. And I think for us and the lyrical ones, right? We telling stories, we sharing anecdotes, we giving commentary. And I just yesterday I weighed myself for the first time since February 9th, 2020. And I think that the aspect that stood out to me the most was the gap or the break in consistency. That it had been 23 months since I weighed myself. And for me, weighing myself was strictly about taking 5 minutes to reflect every 4 weeks, every month, taking 5 minutes to weigh myself, look at my body composition according to one piece of equipment. And the cool thing about using one piece of equipment is that if it's off by a certain amount, it'll be off by the same amount every time you use it. And you can acknowledge, right, the changes that are made, right, whether it's accurate or not, it's inaccurate the same way every time. And like for 2 years, basically not having stopped to reflect in this manner was what stood out to me the most. Um, and it stood out because that's actually something that was part of my routine that I would stop and set aside time to reflect on the choices I was making in my physical wellness. And then I could reflect and say, how was my mental well being and my emotional well being affecting my practices and my choices that led to the choices I made um, for my physical well being. So even though my the measurables that I was looking at only showed me what was happening physically with my body. I was taking this time to then look at what routines were I was I keeping, which routines that I need to affirm, which routines that I need to change. And I think for me, I'm excited for the next 4 weeks to where I can implement more routine to continue a regimen of reflection. And I think that, personally, that has me excited about the upcoming year. Not from a resolution standpoint, but more from a resolved every day. Um, it's very interesting that we're about five 5 months out from completing our second year of this podcast, and right where we are right now, it's a it's an exciting time because I feel like the world is starting to listen into each other again, and we have this opportunity to be a beacon in the digital space that reminds people to interact and congregate and relate to each other in the analog, physical, in real life space as well. Um, so yeah, that's my week 2, January 22. That's the headspace I'm in, the heart space I'm in. Sitting y'all, it's episode 83, Lyrical Ones. We here. What's happening?
So currently, the world, as it's happening, is going through ever-present significant change, and
Yeah.
my reflection and observation on it is it ain't working. And I think people are in different ways realizing how it doesn't work for them as individuals. More so, me speaking out for myself. Um, this world, people I have conversations with recently, we had meetings, and the meetings were adding a level of trauma or traffic in trauma or transportation of trauma. And
Mm,
it was like the anxiety and the tension of the conversation was based around the current situation, the current panda panda. And I said, as much as we call it overwhelming, the baseline is that it's dangerous. That we say overwhelming, but we often don't call out what we're overwhelmed by is the amount of danger. And I'm seeing the discourse, as you said, right, where you have people who want to withdraw from the societal contract of going and being in person, and you have people who are for it. And what I'm of the mind is, why don't we have something that can serve both? Why
mm,
is it continually this? It's this or that. And so my like, as you said, reflection, because I reflect a lot. I wear my heart on my head. I make head heavy content. I'm a very cerebral person, as I've been told by many, old soul by some, a warrior and a warrior. That's a A and a O for those that know or don't. The thing about it is, I I cogitate. I go into deep thought. I process things on many, many levels. I act and I do, but I also often take in a lot, and I really get into a almost like a mathematical equation of my mind of like the observations I'm making and the impact it has on me and those around me. And yeah, it ain't working. It's
mm,
a lot of reminders of what is not working and why it's necessary to have a very steadfast, or a consistent approach, as you were saying, that level of consistency, I think is very key. Because when you talked about the new year, I've said this maybe last week or the week before, but I was saying um, the new year doesn't mean what it did in the past to me. Because the new year that I look at is everyone's birthday. That's the new year. That's your personal New Year's Day. When it comes to January, it's a reminder that taxes need to be done. And so I've been also doing a lot of taxes. I have a situation where my business, right, there's a all of these different fees that I need to pay, all these different licenses I need to get to re-up for the year, but there's also a lot of taxes and it needs to be disclosed. And so I'm going through the process of finding all my receipts, making sure that I'm leaving no stone unturned, really trying to be careful. But I do feel this level of anxiousness because before, me getting taxes was a reward. It was like, "Ooh, I'm gonna get something." Now uh it's like a duty that I must do to understand my relationship with my business, to really understand the level of investment that I've made because I'm now looking at the math and I'm like, "Whoa." I used to say this all the time. Those that know me in person or with the mass, I say you have to some degree, you have to give. There has to be some type of debt you have to pay. If it's monetary, usually that average is around $30,000. It's not to say that you have to, even though in the past I have said that. I don't believe that to be the case anymore because I think there's multiple ways, a multitude of ways to get where you want to go. But I've seen from experience, leveraging the experience of others and talking to them of what they had to do, it's around $30,000 for them. And I always used to be that with that in mind. And now I look at the numbers and I'm like, oh, I've definitely put in more than enough to warrant whatever deficit I needed. So now, more importantly, it's about generating profit versus the investment, right? We make investments on a as we want a return on it, right? It's like
Mm.
people now, right? It's what they call what is it? They're consumer investors, or what's the proper phrase I'm looking for that they call
Retail.
these retail. There we go, retail investors, right?
Hmm.
And there's a lot of truth in that, and a lot of power in that, right? We're seeing it as it escapes the stock market, and it now goes into the virtual crypto and more digital realm of this new universe we're developing, this new reality we're developing. And I'm saying that as everything exists, it's all tied together. It all exists at one moment. As I speak it, and you listen to this, whether now in the future or in some fragment of the past, it's all happening at the same time. The system that doesn't work is also creating space for a system that is different. I spoke to
Mm.
someone uh, just the other day, a colleague, and I was saying, imagine a person who lives in a box and they put on a headset and now they in a penthouse. Imagine a lack of space people are currently experiencing, right? At the same time I'm saying this, I'm also fighting for the preservation of a natural habitat within Daly City. There's a music video I put out. The song's called Fresh Squeeze from the project Symbiosis with T Venom. And we shot a music video inside of a garden in Daly City that's for public access, public use. And right now, the land is more or less being it's being put up for destruction, so they can create housing. Um, Whether this housing is sustainable or healthy, there's a lot of specifics that need to kind of be, or I would hope people would take the time to see the necessary steps to have a healthy environment for people, but also for the space we live in as we coexist with the world around us, whether that be nature, animals, flora, fauna, you name it, how you want to call it. But this all exists at the same time. And as destruction happens, creation is happening, right? We're seeing people, I just saw earlier, I think today or yesterday, a school in New York, a bunch of high schoolers was like, we bouncing, we out, we walking out, right? Because we are proactively taking initiative around our health, right? The concern that everyone has. I'm going around the community. I'm seeing the numbers are low in terms of people being in places, whether they're sick or whether they're afraid. It's all warranted. Some people need community. Some people need gathering. Some people need in person. And I make myself available through the risk and the danger to show up. I do my best to be safe. I'm not going out of my way to receive something that I don't want. I'm not sitting here trying to infect myself and infect others, right? I took a step away because I could not get tested because there was not a safe and accessible means for me to get tested. So I removed myself from the equation. But right now, as I have the opportunity and as I have access, I find myself venturing back into making myself accessible because I understand the needs of my people. I understand the complexity of the situation we're in, where people need to feel encouraged. People need to know someone got their back. People want to know that someone's going to speak up for them and give them space or just give them some opportunity. And just to check in, to see loved ones or see people you care about, or to just meet someone who you may have never met, right? All these things are happening at one time. And right now, as we are in this moment, this ever changing future, yeah, some things work, some things don't. And I'm looking to a day where we have more that works than we do that doesn't work. Teachers often talk like they students never fail, and I have a big problem with that. So yeah, we need a it don't work for everybody, but I'm
I
trying to
think
get it
that,
to work for everyone.
to me, I feel like the communal systems that work have some sort of transparency and then some sort of uh, system for feedback and understanding of how the general population or the overall population is receiving the quality of the system. And it's interesting because we have a census that looks at the population, but we don't have a census that looks at the overall performance and opinion of the system as a whole, right? It's like you could say that's voting, but the folks who decide on, what we're voting on have been elected, and there isn't an overall. I don't feel like they they're equipped or that the system gives them the incentive to get a good read on what their constituents are feeling, or how they're navigating through the world. Because basically, you say inflation doesn't have to do with how well the people are doing, right? It has to do with how well the economy is doing. So if there's a right, if the supply is too high, right, that doesn't mean that there's an abundance of ownership, where people are not in need. It means that the production is too much. And right, like there aren't systems in place. Like a teacher doesn't ask her students, how am I doing? Right? Professor doesn't ask the students, how's he doing? Right? They don't, there's not a system in place to ask that question and give feedback. And there isn't that system in early care, um, in education. There isn't that system in K through 12. There isn't that system in college. There isn't that system, like in some companies in corporate it may exist, in some nonprofits it may exist, but for the most part there is not a culture of constructive criticism, of transparent, honest criticism, or contrast or comparison. And it says a lot about how well things are going. It's funny because like the Roman Empire, right, had this escapism in place of the games and the gladiators. And it was in response to an understanding about the aggression and pent up energy that the public felt, that these participants could then act out the aggressions of the overall public. Right? They would serve as representatives to say, y'all can't fight in the street, so I'll fight in here for you. And y'all can root for whoever you want to root for, and you can root for the violence. And it fed into one aspect, but it was not addressing everything that was needed through this one form of entertainment, escapism, and appeasement. And it never it never met the need, it never met the needs of the hungry. It never met the needs of the impoverished or the unhoused. It never met the needs of those struggling with mental health issues. And when a system doesn't acknowledge and serve those needs, things are going to become skewed, and people will continue to be left out and looked over, but the number of people that are left out and looked over will continue to grow. And even though a lot of charities and philanthropic initiatives exist amongst entertainers, the entertainment that they pursue or are practitioners of does not serve the needs of the public. And as Rome then start to like not be aware of what is happening to their people, right? Basically, the ground started to disintegrate under the system. And right, there's enough division for um, dissension and invasion, and for things to break apart and deteriorate and implode, just from there not being a solid foundation of community and togetherness. And the mob may be excited and move together in entertainment, but may not move together in any other time. And I feel like if we keep moving with this dissension and division, and where we have to choose sides, there there'll be there won't be enough for us to be unified for.
As you said that, two things
Mm-hmm.
came to mind, right? Because you brought up something that I'm a believer in, but a big scrutinizer of voting. As you were speaking, was trying to look up how much money do politicians have. Not how much do they make from being a politician, but how much wealth do they hold as their own demographic, right? And that being senators, congressmen, those in the White House, right? Like, what is the amount of money that they have, right? Like, I
Like the
know,
net worth.
Yeah, what's that net worth look like amongst that collective, right? Because people will say, "Oh, Bernie Sanders ain't really about that life. He a millionaire himself, right?" And I'm like, "Yeah, but the policies that he backs and the things that he stands for do seem to be more in of an alignment with people who don't have, money, right? Like when I think of people who have or trying to start their business and they're working a job, they barely making ends meet as is, and they're being taxed highly anyway as an individual, and then they got a little side hustle, but the fear of, oh, if I make $600 on Cash App, I got to report that, right?
Hmm.
I am of a mindset that there's a policy that needs to be in place for people that if they work solely by themselves, they should not have to disclose the amount of money they made if that amount of money, right, is under a certain threshold. And I'm talking about in the tens of thousands of dollars. And I don't mean 10,000. I mean, we need 5 digits set, whether that's 40,000, 50,000 a year, right? If
Right.
you are working, right, as a sole proprietor or one business person, or you don't even have your business formulated, but you able to go to the swap meet, the flea market, and make your little you make your little monies. The last thing I need is to hear about how much taxes a person is paying when they're trying to get something off the ground. They're one person working for themselves. There needs to be a number set that is not $600. That's ridiculous, right? At the same time, I'm of the mindset that if you are a politician and you are making millions of dollars and you are representative of an area that is not a majority of millionaires or wealthy people, right? You need to relinquish your funds. You need to relinquish what it is that you are profiting. You're going to create laws that are going to help you profit. Yet you participate in the same game as everyone else. This is rigged, right? You going let me look up my favorite Democratic. Is it the House? Is she the what's her is her name Diane? Fine. No, it's not Diane Feinstein. What's her name? What's that woman that always
Nancy
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 Pelosi?
Pelosi.
Nancy, that's right. Nancy Pelosi, Speaker of the House of the United States House of Representatives. I know she rich. She from the city. She live over there in millionaire billionaire row. She done got her money, right?
Hmm.
And to me, you got nerve to want to speak for people who again are associated with a party where yeah oftentimes it's seen as the working class, right? Now I don't believe that no more. That's all malarkey. Y'all the left core and the right core, and y'all come out of the same core. Y'all represent two halves of a whole sphere. And as much as y'all try to act like y'all not down, y'all be colluding, y'all be implicit, y'all be helping the other get what y'all want to get because again, y'all got something that most average Americans don't. Yet you represent most average Americans, right?
Right.
And so when you talk about voting, right, there's another word that comes to mind: comorbidity. Comorbidity. What does that mean? The simultaneous presence of two or more diseases or medical conditions in a patient. This is from the definitions from Oxford Languages, right? A
Mm.
disease or medical condition that is simultaneously present with another or others in a patient, right? Comorbidities. Why do I bring that up? Recently, the CDC said they seen progress in the advancement of how we're dealing with uh, this panda bear. And what they said that was encouraging in the results was most of the people, I think it was 74, I might be misquoted. Sorry, I don't mean to give out misinformation. So please scrutinize what I'm saying by all means. That the people who the majority who were dying, who were impacted gravely, they had comorbidities. What does that mean? If you have cancer, asthma, if you have a disability, chronic illness, you are one of those people. The To say that the news is encouraging is one of the most ridiculous, harmful, disrespectful, demeaning, dehumanizing things any representative of a large agency that's supposed to create a level of safety in the information being dispersed. So we have this infrastructure, right? I'm going back to, you know, the reflection, but also the observation of what doesn't work. We have a system of representatives who get paid well. They getting paid. They understand what's the wave gonna be. They know before it come what the bill is written. We know we gonna start telling people that this is the law. You gonna have to disclose if you made $600. We as politicians know that, and we gonna then play in the market of despair, of fear, of whatever's gonna happen, right? But you go to the gladiators, right? The warriors, for those that are
Hmm.
more Bay Area regionally known. You go to the showmanship of athleticism
Hmm.
and the investment of energy in how this is carried out, right? And how easy. I spoke to someone earlier today, and if you get this reference, then you'll see what I mean by the deception, because it plays into the deception of the politics. It plays into the deception of the ones we look to trust with scientific information and how they disperse it with any sense of compassion or empathy. And I just feel like saying it because I always want to remind people about this situation. Imagine this: you have a person who is extremely gifted and talented in their athletic abilities, and they court someone that is currently in some variation of a relationship with their teammate. Now, imagine the level of distrust that happens amongst the covenant of this team, right? You are supposed to be my team member. You've approached somebody that I have some type of relations or feelings for. As they say in this metaphor, analogy, or whatever simile you want to call it, there's many fish in the sea. So why did you go for the one that's most closely tied related to me? Now we don't have trust. But also, it's convenient that as this trust is lost, you can now represent a cause, even though your whole team isn't backing your cause. But you represent a cause because you have athleticism on your side, which means you also have fame, notoriety, acclaim, and now that attention is starting to be used in a different way. The deception of why, the performativeness of it, and to the degree of what is actually believable in terms of change. Now, I tie that to the politics, right? Because that same thing happens. We invest in someone, we see the grassroots start, the strategy, the yo, what's up, encryption. We got yo, what's up from Twitch, encryption. But
Hey.
what I'm saying, right? You got somebody who is like from the ground, seems talented, educated, intelligent, different, but somewhere along the way, you start to see that they have also been compromised by the system in front of them, right? It
Right.
happens
They're
in
playing the
sport.
game.
It happened exactly. They playing the game. It's not literally the game. It's the larger game, the peripheral game that happens outside of the actual specific game. And
Yeah.
the thing about it is the gladiator, right? When you see this person who is supposed to be representing you, you also have to be very like careful of how much you're investing in it, because it's one thing to be entertained, right? Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained? Spaniard, Spaniard, Jay-Z, December 4th. Oh my God. But anyways, what more
Hmm.
can I say? But the point is, encore, do you want, but anyways, the point is, right? When you're in this situation that we're currently being faced with, where it's not working for everybody, where we do need time to reflect, because yes, it's almost like a mental meteor has crashed into our just process and has given space to look very different in terms of our everyday routines, in terms of our relationship with ourselves, in terms of how we view things. It's important that people understand their relationship and what is it they're looking for, because aliens are real, they're here, and what you gonna do about it? More importantly, it's yeah, really thinking about coming together, really thinking about how we use our collective power, our collective energy, right? Like you were saying, right? We share this space. We're about to approach in 5 months our second pass around the sun as a unit and as a collective of messaging and communication and processing. And like I said, people say that the information is overwhelming, but also our way of dealing with it for a lot of us is dangerous, right? We're putting ourselves in danger and harm. And we're doing it because we've been born into a social construct and a social contract that we no longer agree with. And I'm all for people who are watching or who are listening or just whatever you do to spread this message. I want y'all to think about what can you do to make it different? What conversation can you have to change the narrative, to change the energy, to change the scope? Because I do believe we can make something better, right? Like people always say, it ain't all bad, but are we working to make it all good? I believe that's possible. I really believe that is something that can be accomplished. And I really think that it's gonna take all of us to strategically think. Because again, my thoughts is, how do we rectify this $600 you peeping what I got going on with my money? And how do we stop having these politicians who get millions of dollars off of the policies that they are literally writing themselves, right? Like Nancy Pelosi, how long you been in politics? Like you was the US representative from California since 1987. That is 35 too long years. I'm sorry. You needs to
Been,
go.
been playing the
Because
game.
if I'm supposed to look at my life and the quality of existence in the past 35 years, which I can do, right? I got to ask myself, what have you done? What has drastically improved or been made different where I am noticing some type of great benefit? Because what I do see right now is that as much as y'all talk about the incredible nature of the stock market, I also see how quick the media is going to parade around this inflation, right? I see the deficit in people working. I see that there's people not willing to go back to work. I see people trying to find money in ways that may not be considered legitimate in the eyes of the infrastructure or this social contract that we under. So to me, it's a thing where something got to change because to me, like football players don't last that long, let alone basketball players, right? And I don't care about how long you decide to be an artist. I don't. Create it to your heart's content. But what you're not gonna do is you not gonna hold us hostage because you don't want to let go of your power. You're not gonna hold us hostage because you don't want to give up control. Because to me, when you've been in one position for this long and you have the nerve to say, well, I think we should be able to participate in the stock market too. You were out your everlasting God stopping mind. Willie Walker need to come through right now, pull out the contract, Darius Pellicottum, and pull you out of the candy store. Cause this is wild. Like this, come on. For real. Aliens is real. They here. What you gonna do about it?
It's wild because the deception, right, happens in multiple, ways all the time. And there's this kind of cat and mouse game of, people with influence and uh, impact where they would like to seem relatable, you know, and so they will bring focus to where they started. And the truth is, they want to stay in this position of influence for as long as it's lucrative for them. And that is the culture, right? It's like folks get a little bit, right? They want tenure, right? Whether it's a teacher, a professor, an athlete, um, uh, a sibling, a competitor, an actor, there's this idea that what you are doing, that you feel validated in, or people recognize you in, and serves as some part of your identity, you are supposed to do it for as long as you can. And some people are holding themselves hostage, while others with certain influence choose to hold positions hostage, right? It's like, okay, I want to be the number one player for as long as I can be, um, because it's lucrative for me. Also, it's a part of my identity now, so I want to be known and validated and greeted this way, right? I win my gold medal in the Olympics 4 years later, I want that same validation. And in between those 4 years, I want people to recognize and identify me as this person of impact. And some people, right, they they use that space to advocate for others. And then there's a lot of people who play the cat and mouse game of being relatable, speaking up at times, and then being silent at other times. And granted, they're human and they have a bandwidth for how they export that energy of resistance or advocacy. And you can say, oh well, like they're just getting tired. They've been doing this for a long time. And then you have lifelong advocates who don't get tired, at least not too tired to quit, and they spend their whole lives speaking up on behalf of people whose voices are not heard. And right, it's like if you're not doing that in your friendships, right, in your relationships, at your job, if you're not acknowledging the folks who are not as influential, right? Why not be influential for them, right? On their behalf, take your influence and speak up for these people. And I think we're getting more of that, every season, not just in sports, but also in you know uh, Earth's seasons where we see quarterly. We can look back and see changes. Um, Maybe not all the changes we want to see if we look at the whole year, but we can look and say, okay, well, we know that in this highly prejudiced area, folks who chase down a person, chase down and murder a person because of their ethnicity, um, or their cultural background, that they're going to be punished for it. At the same time, you're seeing folks who are robbing people at gunpoint, stealing from retail establishments, and not receiving any kind of justice or reprimanding. And it's the lack of recourse, the lack of punishment, the lack of consequence is encouraging people to harm others. And when people see, oh, this is something that works for me, I can do this, right? Once, I can do it multiple times. I can get away with this. Then, right, we see people get away with being greedy. We see people get away with being discompassionate or selfish, to a point where, say, like, I know I have fans who are left out or feel unrepresented in society, and they are my fans because of the way that I dress that looks like how they dress or represents some aspects of their culture. And but it doesn't necessarily mean I am going to be more active. My goal is to myself and my family to make money, provide for my family, or whatever. And I'm going to do that for as long as possible. And I say sometimes people are holding themselves hostage because they think that's what they have to do. Say, oh well, I have to play this game, this football game, or this politics game for as long as possible, as long as it's lucrative for me. And even if it's not something I enjoy anymore, even if it's not something I intended to do, or I'm not making the same impact that I wanted to make, or I've ended up in a position where people are expecting me to show up a certain way, I have to keep going and showing up that way because it's a part of my identity. Also, I'm supposed to hold on to it and stay in this space for as long as possible instead of making space for someone new to come behind me. Um, I have to ride this till the wheels fall off because that is my pride. That is my service as someone who has done this for some time, right? It's like if I play this game for 15 years, I'm supposed to play it if I can for another 5 years, another 7 years. And I think that is harming people. The that commitment, say I'm gonna work, I'm gonna stay at this job for 3 years because that's an acceptable time to stay at a position, so that people don't look at me sideways when they see I was only at a company for 1 to 2 years. It looks like there's something wrong with me and not something wrong with these companies. It's like part of the reason why I only gave a year to this company is because they weren't showing me that it was healthy for me or lucrative for me or safe for me to stay here. Right. So I'm at, 3 different companies for a year and I found all this violence in these companies. And if you don't come with proof to show this coworker, this coworker, this coworker, right, I'm gonna keep their names out of it, but they all, are able to back me up and say, this is check my references. Like they all able to say that I performed well, but the trauma that I experienced at these positions was enough for me to leave. But all an interviewer may see is, oh, you keep leaving jobs. How can we expect you to stay committed and give us more than 1 year? Right? And the answer is, right, look after me. Right? The answer is create a space that's safe for me to exist in. And that does not seem to be on folks' lists, right? Think about it. Like the nap room, the days off, the self-care days,
The child
um,
care.
the child care, the sexual harassment are all things to protect the company.
Yeah.
It's to keep the
Like I
company from being sued. It's not it's
it ain't for
liability.
you. It's to keep
It's
you from
not for
suing
you.
me.
Yeah, it's exactly it. It's a litigious culture, and so it's really not about the employee. It's about keeping the employee from suing the employer.
Unless you're in I remember when people were romanticized, have you been to the Google campus? Yo, they got
No,
every kind of
but
food in the world. They got
but
they
right,
got
but even
XYZ,
right,
right?
that's so they can keep you without you saying they're not providing what you need for you to work there all for 10 hours.
But the economy is doing so well. The economy is doing incredible. So why isn't there systemic change around the increase of work environments being better, right? Like that's the thing. When because you really hit it on the head by saying are you're leaving these jobs. Why are you leaving? Because it's not worth staying. I'm not leaving because I can't commit. I'm leaving because I don't want to commit to you. Instead of looking and seeing what are we doing wrong, right? I remember they was like, "Well, it was just a coincidence everybody left." Yeah, you want to say it was a coincidence. Let's not look at the person who was speaking out, speaking on behalf, advocating, pushing people, motivating them to leave. Let's not look at that. Let's not look at the one who was fighting for change, right? Let's not look at that, right? Let's not look at the one who constantly was a thorn in your side, who was like, I'm gonna challenge you. Not because I want to disrespect you, but because I know we can grow to do better than what we're doing now. Or we ain't gonna look at that. We just gonna say y'all coincidentally left, and that's how we gonna leave it. That's how we're gonna reconcile the situation, right? Because and I'm speaking from a personal experience. I'm speaking from situations that I've seen and places that I've been. Because when it's cool, we can make it work. But when it ain't cool, it's time for somebody to leave. And if it ain't gonna
Mm.
be you as a manager, as a leader, as a guide, it's gonna be me. Because you're not gonna string me along into believing that my time is worth what you tell me anymore. So I'm gonna keep on the move until I find something that works, something that clicks, something that provides me enough access, resources, or flexibility that makes sense. And the thing that like you really hit it, you was like, yeah, we trying to make sure you don't sue us, right?
Yeah.
Or we think and know how disposable you are in our eyes to the point that we don't have to provide you that because we expect you to leave. We create an environment where the door is always revolving because we will sustain ourselves. We will continue to be here. We don't provide pathways. We expand as far as we need to expand, not as far as you need us to expand, right? And that is the systemic thing, right? When I look at the official portrait of the Speaker of the United States House of Representatives and I realize how much time they've invested and I look at what they've been able to accomplish, I gotta critically ask myself, how many other people are similar to you in this position who are
Mm.
benefiting by staying in this position? How many of you are creating laws that I think are an encroachment on our ability to have access to liberty, freedom, health, right? Wealth, right? We're seeing a time where it ain't working, right? People are like, I don't like NFTs because I don't know nothing about it. And it's granting people an opportunity to access wealth, right? We are living in this revolution. And I am witnessing the divide between the people who are the early adopters, who are going to create the scaffolding and the infrastructure for a new way of making it, versus the ones who cannot unplug from this system that continues to harvest energy out of you, harvest your blood, sweat, tears, and time that you never gonna get back, right? Like I remember that I seen this meme that was like, "This is the guy who said buy Bitcoin in 2013. This is the guy with Bitcoin now, right?" And in 2013, he's like sitting at a table. He got his little drawn up paper. And in 2013, he like eating steak and lobster on a yacht. And it's like this is the reality, right? If if we can't come together then we will only further splinter apart. Some of us will find our groups, some of us will
Right.
find our communities. And as they say, the meek shall inherit the earth, right? So it's the ones who are humble enough to understand they don't know, but are willing to learn, willing to go into the abyss, into the darkness to find out, that will then get the treasures that you scoff at, right? One person's trash is definitely another person's treasure. I want to see as many people win as possible. I speak in a way that challenges people to think critically because, yes, you could be duped into believing that your hero or your savior may not really be there to save you, but are there to save themselves, right? And it's a very delicate tightrope walk because, as you were speaking about, we live at a time where people aren't being held accountable to their actions because we have especially in the city in San Francisco, right? We have an infrastructure where we don't look things like we'll say science when it benefits us, but we won't say that for everything, right? Let's break it down.
Mm.
We are one of the only districts that have juvenile probation, right? And almost every other county in California, juvenile probation is integrated into adult probation. We're one of the, I believe, only that has a distinct juvenile probation. It was revolutionary at the time because it separated the minors from the adults. Now, this is the thing, we didn't continue with the innovation and evolution of that, right? We're seeing it in the jails. We're not seeing it within our own infrastructure. The prefrontal cortex, brains don't fully develop until they're about 25, 26, which means they impulse control and their ability to regulate themselves is at all time low. Now, when you constantly have an environment where people are fighting for change and fighting for freedom and fighting for the least restrictive means, that's one of the quotes, right? We want to hold them in the least restrictive means. What we're not doing is we're not talking about how are we going to challenge them the most. How are we going to challenge what their actual mental capacity is currently at? Because a lot of these same individuals are also comorbidities, right? A lot of them have underlying health issues, if not a disability, right? You can see it for yourself. You can look up the rate of IEPs and the rate of 504 plans in terms of the breakdown, in terms of the demographic by race and nationality, ethnicity. And you can see that same correlation between who's being arrested and convicted of crimes in San Francisco. Now, this is the thing. I'm not talking about punishment. I'm talking about challenge, right? I'm talking about challenging what is happening, because what is happening, what I'm witnessing is I'm a minor. I'm gonna get a slap on
Mm.
the wrist. I'm gonna have to sit down for 48 hours, and I get to go right back with the new lesson I learned about not getting caught to repeat the behavior again because it is fulfilling a need. It's fulfilling a monetary need. It's fulfilling a social need, right? If I'm being told that I'm a menace or I'm a problem, well, I'm going to act in a way that's going to fulfill that role, especially if, again, black churches, churches in general in San Francisco, the youth being there, all time low. You know what is one of the best ways of prevention? The fear of God.
Hmm.
When you have a faith and an understanding that the existence you live in is not just solely for you, that there is a universe and there's all of these different systems at play, that can influence how you receive and respond to the world around you. But if you don't have that relationship to understand what that means, well, guess what? You know, it's another thing, having family members who love you and don't treat you in a toxic, abusive manner. That's another thing. Oh, when you got people who are supportive of you in a positive way, you don't want to disappoint them as much, right? Now, what happens when you put people where they don't have their basic needs met, where they're put in situations where they don't have access to resources or outlets? This is what you have. On top of, we not going to put you in an environment that's going to challenge you to do differently, right? We're going to say, you know what? This was a nonviolent offense. Not that you might be causing some level of harm, and how do we repair it and restore that harm? No, no, no. We're not talking about that. But we going to say that in everything we write, right? In all of our doctrines and all of our books, everything you see is restorative. We want to do a restorative approach. But who's
Mm.
holding the restorative work? Ain't nobody holding the restorative work. And the people who do, they're treated as an afterthought to how the system is supposed to be played out. Instead of being promoted, they're treated as auxiliary. They're not integrated in. And if they are integrated in, trust me, it's not all the way across the board. It's not
Right.
something where we see it work over there and we say we need to expand and grow that and invest in it. No, that's not what happens. So we have a system now where you got youth who are addicted to a behavior, who are being unchallenged, and the intervention is not there for them to do something differently. I know because I worked with it firsthand. I seen what worked and I seen what didn't work. I had to go because I realized the investment, the time, and the energy that was needed to change it, especially when it came to the people who have already benefited from the way the system is, were not going to get out the way. I made the change that I could to learn something else, to go and find something else to help develop and refine my approach to helping my community. Because I'm telling you, I know. I've seen it firsthand. We got people who come from a lineage, right? Or maybe they came up from a mentorship of people who are problematic to what we have in front of us, that are
Right.
benefiting in ways where, yes, your public is now privatized, where what was for people is now for profit, right? And it's gone just the way of the world. This is how it is now. So for me to tell everyone, right, do something different. See what it is you could challenge yourself to make different. Because in the current fashion, in the current trajectory of where we're headed, this ain't it. I'm saying it because I'm about that life. I'm really about that life. I'm about that life when it comes to change. I was raised into this life. When it came to Midway Village and being in middle school all that time ago and trying to protest against PG&E poisoning the people there, from the kids who were coming out with birth defects to the women who were having miscarriage, when it came to Prop 21 and trying to fight for not convicting kids for adult crimes, when it came to trying to develop programs that gave youth the opportunity to explore education, through their own creative artistic means when it came to understanding what intervention is at the point of arrest, when it came to providing jobs and opportunities and skills to get into the workforce. I've done it. I've been around your favorite politicians. I've seen how they get down. I've done been in all the conversations of how they divide the data and how they change the narrative using the data that obviously represents there is a bigger need at hand. Trust me, y'all got to think differently. You don't have to, because I'm going to keep it real. I'm gonna get one of these little NFT chains. I'm gonna flip it for a pretty penny. You may never see me again. I'm gonna get my little land, grow me my little corn, make some tortillas that are organic, made by moi, and I'm gonna find a way to be self-sustaining. I hope we can do that as a collective together, as a community, right? Because I do believe that we can achieve more together. But best believe ain't nothing gonna stop me from getting what I need for myself. That all means I love me. I just hope y'all love you. I mean, it ain't all bad. I'm just trying to make it all good.
I mean, in acknowledging, right, the bad and the good of things, right? It's basically, acknowledging the help and the harm, that exist and, coexist, and right, we can always make space for others to learn from our lessons, but at no point can we learn their lessons for them. And as people make choices, like, it's on us basically, who have the alpha, to share the alpha, right? Right. It's like, not here to sell you, any wisdom that I have, but I am here to share it, and not as an expert, but as someone who has experienced some things and gained a perspective as a result of what I experienced. And as much as I may value my experience and the lessons I've learned, I'm also aware and value the experiences of others. But you're right. I am greedy for understanding that I may make choices that are best for me, um, and my loved ones. But I think as I've navigated through life, I've learned to expand, um, my idea of loved ones, that I don't withhold, um, what I'm able to share. I do protect what I'm not able to share. I I do protect the energy that is necessary for me to be intentional in life with the people I trust, because I can care about people and not trust them to do what's best for my well-being. While I have people that I do trust to speak to me, engage with me, interact with me in a way, with an intention that they are thinking about what's best for me, right? That's how we create, tribe and community, and support each other, acknowledging where I may have some experience and tenure versus where someone else may have some experience and tenure, and we use what we have to move forward. But my goal may not be a friend's goal, or my plan may not be a plan, that is shared by everyone that I love and trust. But we may have some understandings about the methods that we use that help us move forward together toward our specific, or our our selected plans and dreams and goals. And so like I want to be able to give, knowing that the people I expect to reciprocate are reliable. The folks that I don't expect to reciprocate will take what I give and use it to the best of their ability. I don't need anything back from them. It is great if we have an exchange, but more than anything, I would hope that they believe that what they receive from me is meant for them. Um, that they may believe that whatever else comes to them through the creator, through the universe, through moments in time is for them, and that they can decipher the events so that they can move forward and use those things for their benefit, and not for the detriment of others, not to climb on top of others, but that they at least learn from my example, or gain from my example an inclination to also share. And I think if we can, we can do that, and like they say, pay it forward, you know, there will be a cycle of receiving and letting go, and letting go and receiving, where we are not hoarding, what can be resources to others, and we are not withholding the compassion that is necessary to acknowledge each other and their each other, um, and one another's needs, and the injustice that exists within our lives. Um, yeah, I think in this episode, I think it's good that we know that there are folks holding on to things that they shouldn't be holding on to, and some of that is trauma, some of that uh, is greed and finances, some of that is power and influence, and some of that um, are is barriers that keep people from loving one another. We always got to look at what we can let go of so that we can receive more. And the more you receive, hopefully, the more you let go of.
I'm gonna be cruel and I'm gonna be cocky. And I'm gonna say it.
Say it.
Understand what health means to you. Affluent, I appreciate you because you have been a consistent vehicle, a consistent vessel of someone who is doing what they can to understand what health means to them, right? I can remember back, and there's a core element that you've held and maintained that I see still exists, and I appreciate that. I love that, and I honor that because I know that I need it within my view. I need it within my perspective. I need it within my universe. Didn't know it till I had access to it, but I was in the search of it. Once I got it, I value it, right? I value the people of lyrical ones who maintain a steadfast faith in something more, that is a love that is healing, that is spiritual, that is guiding, and an element that is ancient, yet ever present in innovation and change, right? There is something to be said about my cruelty. Figure out what health means to you. Refine that. Is it healthy eating? Is it healthy thinking? Is it meditation? Is it prayer? Is it spiritual? Is it psychological? Figure out what that means. Is it your career? Is it your path? Is it the people around you? My cruelty to you is figure out what is healthy to you. Because as much as I suffer, I'm not suffering as much as I have. I have bad days. It's tough. Things get challenging, but I am determined to persevere. It's not always going to be easy. Matter of fact, I'm at the point in my life where I prefer things to be more hard because in my approach, I want hard to be easy and I want impossible to be hard. That's just my philosophy. Does not mean that you need to adapt that or adopt that. But I do think it's worth the opportunity, the chance to figure out what is healthy to you. What does that mean? What is your relationship to it? Because as much as we want to see change, the first thing that you can do is change yourself. Whether or not you can believe that, well, that's up to you. But I believe that it can. It can happen. So I'm just saying, with all cruelty in my heart, figure out what health means to you. Because, yes, I'm going to be selfish. I've been so selfless for so long. And I want to see what it's like to operate in a different means in a different way. I want to learn. So in my selfishness, this is an opportunity to learn what does selfish mean to me. Because again, for my health, I think that it's important. I think it's important to have boundaries. I think it's important to have space and to have distance. I wish you well, all of you, whoever that you are. I'm putting this out into the universe, but as much as I wish you well, I'm going to be well for me. I'm going to make that happen. I'm going to pursue that. It's not a wish, it is a practice, it is a discipline. So, with all cruelty in my heart, figure out what healthy means to you. Alfluent, do you have any final thoughts, final words for episode 83 of the Lyrical Ones podcast?
Important developments, important, I think, important attention to priorities over the last, was it 21, 20 months, um, are where attentions on where we have been overwhelmed, um, where we are capable of being overwhelmed, and what it means to find refuge, rejuvenation, rest, and relaxation. Right? Refuge, right, can include rest. Refuge can include rejuvenation. Refuge can include rest, or no, relaxation. Right? Relaxation can include rest. Can include refuge. Can include rejuvenation. Rejuvenation can include rest, refuge, relaxation, and rest can include rejuvenation, relaxation, and refuge. These things, right, can be sought after, defined, acknowledged, and addressed. And if folks need help in finding those things, right, they can interact with lyrical ones and lyrical opposition to find those things. I think everyone in our community um, has has a good idea on how to pursue those things for themselves. I think that's something that's consistent within our community, and I think those things are important. I feel like refuge is important. It's important to find places and create spaces that are safe for you. Rejuvenation is important. It's important to find methods and environments that bring you new life, new energy, and pour back into you. Rest is important to release and let go of what overwhelms you, and there are multiple sevenfold ways to go about finding what that rest is. Um, and relaxation. It is important to 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 find tranquility, peace, serenity in a world that is noisy, is chaotic, that is out of your control in a lot of ways. When you can acknowledge what's out of your control or beyond your control, I think it is a great way to move in the direction of peace and tranquility and stillness before returning to the chaos that exists. So, them four things: rest, rejuvenation, refuge, and relaxation, um, are my week 2 takeaways for episode 83.
Episode 83. 83. Yeah, it's necessary. Rest, as we've often communicated, is necessary. This is a community that definitely refines, defines, and innovates on rest. So, with that, as we get the rest of this episode podcast out the way, episode 83, Lyrical Ones, we often do at this particular time.
One, 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 one.